Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, thank you. It's an honor to be with you today. Let me just begin by being perfectly frank. So in a few minutes after I speak, I'll have to leave early, and I want you to understand why. I think you'll understand. Have you guys ever had like a cold and you buy that little box and it has like the day side and the night side on the box? I took the wrong side like 2 hours ago, so we got to hurry here before you get to read about my views on trucking in America today. So, first of all, thank you. I'm really, it's an honor to be with you today. Actually, a week ago this very night, it was a long ceremony. My daughter graduated from high school. As I said, it was very long, so I'm going to try to keep my speech short because her graduation ceremony ended about 15 minutes ago. And but it's funny, I was there, and so you're reading so-and-so graduate GPA 18.2. I didn't even know that was possible. And so you people, my kids ask me, Dad, what was your GPA? What was your GPA when you graduated? I'm like, oh, we had different numbers back then. It doesn't. So I was going through this really impressive student college acceptances. Let me just begin. Look, I'm not, when it comes to like colleges, particularly college football in particular, which is the reason why we even have a country, I am deeply biased, and I'm going to leave Florida State out of it for a moment just because whatever. I think they kind of like vote, so never mind. But anyway, but look, I know a few of you, I see the University of Florida. Who's going to Florida? You're set for life. Now there's a number of other schools, good schools, SEC schools, Auburn, Louisiana State, University of Mississippi, University of South Carolina, University of Tennessee, right? All right. I just want to be the first to offer you my deepest condolences. And this young lady just sang unbelievable. Grace, is that your family, Grace? Why would parents let their kids go to Alabama? It's Nick Saban's evil empire. I'm of course kidding, kind of, about these things, and you should be very proud. I know how you feel tonight, and the song, "It's Time to Say Goodbye." I've been told not really. They still make like cameo appearances at inopportune times. Usually about the 20th of the month, you get that call. That's what I hear about kids when they go to college. 21st of the month. Yeah, like this month, I had this expense I didn't know was coming, so they don't necessarily say goodbye. It's more like one of those programs where the characters keep showing up. But it's fine, The one thing I have heard, again, my oldest is only 18, but this I've heard from everyone. I believe it's an established fact, and that is that grandkids are better than kids. And but you can't have them without the kids first. So I'm really honored to be with you. Like I said, my speech is not very long because Casey stole my speech, and so he just spoke a moment ago, so I'm going to give you a different one that I have here, and it's about the stock market. No, I'm kidding. So, no, thank you I'm honored to be with you. So, one of the things that's been most interesting, I don't know if you've seen on television, CNN has this series on 1968. Were any of you alive in 1968? A few of you? Okay. So back in ancient times, 1968. No, but they have this documentary series. The Washington Post also did this front page article about 1968. And the reason why it's getting all this coverage is it's best known as a year of tremendous upheaval in America. It was, we had two major political figures assassinated in that year, Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy. There were race riots that broke out across America. Crime spiraled out of control all across the country. And of course, Vietnam was a very painful episode in American history, and it caused very deep divisions. It actually forced a sitting president, Lyndon Johnson, to not even seek re-election. It's also the year that gave rise to something that was called the counterculture. Years later, they'd be known as hippies, but it was basically young Americans who decided to reject our cultural norms. And young men grew their hair long. People were using drugs as if they were liberating. The phrase "make love, not war" was on all these signs that people were holding. And as I read the story in the newspaper and I watched parts of the CNN documentary, I thought to myself, and hear me out, I don't want you to think that the cold medicine's kicked in yet. I thought to myself, you know what this country really needs right now? It actually needs another countercultural movement. And let me explain what I mean by that. First of all, let me just say I'm here today to call on these young men and women to rebel. And it sounds, from what I've heard in the few minutes I've been up here, that they were well on their way to some sort of rebellion to begin with, as far as this senior class was concerned. They are apparently, the school is reevaluating whether they're going to keep the high school program open, which is very, no, I'm kidding. But as I told you a week ago, this very night, my own daughter graduated from high school down in Miami. And so I know what parents and grandparents and others that are here thinking right now, and that's what kind of graduation speech is this? Asking people to rebel. And but I'll repeat what I said, and I mean this in the strongest possible terms. My strongest advice to you is to rebel against the prevalent trends in our culture today. You have grown up in the world that my generation helped to make. And this month, all across this country, at convention halls and auditoriums and college arenas, there are these very prominent, successful, quote-unquote, speakers will be sharing with graduates free advice on the rest of your life. Let me tell you the advice. I'm paraphrasing it, but I've seen enough of these now on YouTube and things like that to tell you more or less what the general trend is. The first is that people are generally good, and therefore so are you. That no matter what you have done or what you will do, you should always feel good about yourself, have supreme confidence in yourself. The other thing they'll tell you is that rely on yourself. You're the master of your own fate. I've actually heard it said that prayer is only for the most extreme problems, and if at all, and that we all know that, by the way, I've heard on a number of occasions, not in graduation speeches, but every now and then, people love to cite to me the very famous Bible verse that I'm sure you know well, God helps those who help themselves, right? What is the citation on that? Do you guys? I spent all night looking for it, but you'll be told, or they're told, that you're the ultimate judge of what is right or wrong for you. What might be wrong to others that's their opinion. As long as you aren't hurting anyone, if something makes you happy, it's probably the right thing to do. The truly good and successful people, is the other message, are the ones that people like. If you're famous, if you won an election, if you made a lot of money, you're successful. So tonight, make sure that the pictures you decide to put on Instagram are the ones that will get the most likes and the best comments. And then check on them throughout the evening to make sure that you're getting good likes and comments on it. And also, by the way, the best way to make sure people know that you care about them is to like and comment on their pictures. Young people are told, go change the world, which often means go out and fight for the things that the most and highest number of people possible are for. Because basically, the more people agree with you and what you're saying or doing, then the better your cause obviously is. If, on the other hand, someone stands for something that most people aren't for, that must be inherently wrong and maybe even evil. In fact, people with these views should be silenced, or at a minimum, they should keep their opinions to themselves. You'll learn through both these speeches and ultimately through living life these days that the best way to deal with people who stand for something most people disagree with is to embarrass them, to call them names, dunk on them online, or burn them on social media. And by the way, go ahead and use profanity and vulgar language. They deserve it. And if what they stand for is also opposed by celebrities, the media, and the people with a lot of followers, then no one's going to criticize you for using profanity. They'll probably celebrate you as brilliant, insightful. And by the way, you may pick up a bunch of new followers on social media, which only proves how right you are in the first place. And no matter what, never, ever admit to weakness. In fact, you should do unto others as they did to you, maybe even worse. If they hit you, hit them back 10 times harder. These are today's rules of life. These are the keys in the minds of many people to success, at least according to the culture and the society which you are about to inherit. But I wonder, what if your generation decided to rebel against these rules? And it sounds from the speeches I've heard here tonight that you're well on your way. What if instead you recognized that you are flawed people, all of us are, that we are prone to make mistakes and bad decisions. It's actually our nature. And that you can't trust your feelings or sometimes even your own intelligence to always make the right decisions. And so you recognize that we need not just laws, by the way, but values that help guide us on what is right and what is wrong. What if you accepted that there are things that are always right and that there are truly things that are always wrong? What if you were the generation that once again started seeing weakness as strength and human strength as weakness? What if changing the world is about what you can do for others instead of what you can gain for yourself? And what if you were the generation that decided that rejection and persecution for doing what is right is a blessing to be embraced instead of a curse to be avoided? And what about if you were the generation that instead of attacking those who attack you or us, you return their anger with kindness, and you return hatred with love? Well, this would be countercultural. This would be a countercultural rebellion which would shock a lot of people. The thing is, this countercultural rebellion isn't new. It was actually modeled and taught by someone over 2,000 years ago in a culture, frankly, whose values were not all that unlike many of the values that have found mainstream acceptance today. For those of us who are of the Christian faith, and I have a suspicion, there's a lot of those in the room today, Jesus of Nazareth was God made man. But whether you believe that or not, I believe it is an indisputable truth that Jesus of Nazareth was the most influential person who ever lived. He had no money, he had no political power, had no army, didn't even have an Instagram account. He was executed naked by the government. And while being executed, the people walked by and they laughed at him and they mocked him and they spit on him and they called him names. He had a lot of people following him until things got bad. And then even the people closest to him went into hiding when he was arrested. In fact, one of them, who he had actually entrusted with key leadership, denied even knowing him, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And yet, he led a countercultural revolution that ended up overthrowing the most powerful empire in the world just a few decades later. And life on earth, for both those who believe in him as God and those who don't, has frankly never been the same. Even now, even today, separated by 2 centuries, his impact is felt all over this planet. On this very day, there are thousands of hungry children on this planet who are being fed in his name. On this very day, there are thousands of homeless people who are being housed and cared for in his name. On this very day, there are thousands of sick people who are being treated in his name. And on this very day, there are thousands of people dying who are not dying alone in his name. Over 2,000 years after the death of this countercultural revolution, one led by a poor, powerless 33-year-old, he is still making a bigger impact than any celebrity, any political leader, any government, or any organization on earth now or at any time in its history. And my advice to you is to rebel against our modern culture and embrace instead the one that has changed the world. What I will not claim to you is that this will be easy. The values that he both taught and modeled are as unpopular today as they were in his time. Frankly, it is something I struggle with and will admit to not always getting right. After all, I'm in a line of work where I need at least more than half the people to like me. And I'm in this line of work at a time when so many people, sadly even many who confess to being followers of Jesus, reject many of the things he taught. I cannot promise you that embracing these values will make you famous or rich or popular. In fact, I can almost assure you they will cause some to mock and ridicule you, and maybe even some persecute you. But what I can tell you without any reservation is that the more someone lives like Jesus, the more they exhibit true love. A love that isn't a noun, but a love that is a verb. A love that isn't what you feel, but rather expressed in how you live and in what you do. The more someone lives like Jesus, the more joy and peace they seem to have. Not a joy and a peace that depends on what happens, but rather a joy and a peace that comes no matter what happens. The more someone lives like Jesus, the more patience they seem to have. Patience as you wait for blessings, and patience as you endure with your trials. The more someone lives like Jesus, the more kindness and goodness people seem to exhibit. Kindness towards those who do not return it, and a goodness that is lived, not just spoken. The more someone lives like Jesus, the more faithful they seem to be, a faith that actually gets stronger in the face of adversity, a faith that allows them to persevere when others doubt. The more someone lives like Jesus, the gentler they are, gentle in the face of aggression, able to unite where others divide and mend what others break. And the more someone lives like Jesus, the more self-control they seem to have, truly free from the chains of modern life that bind so many. The alternative is to live life the way things are now, to conform to the culture of today. And while it may be easy to talk about it here, the world is about to test you, because it is a culture that celebrates anything that feels good and will make you a slave of the pursuit of it. It's a culture in which we sacrifice our health, our families, and our values in the worship of money and approval and fame. A culture where we seek magic solutions to our problems from the latest life coach or self-help book or even a psychic. A culture where we spend our time in search of something to be outraged by and someone to fight with over it. It's a culture where we increasingly separate ourselves from our neighbors, from our lifelong friends, and even from family because of who they voted for or what they believe in. A culture where we can't help but cheer on or heckle back at public fits of anger and insult, whether they're broadcast live on cable news or captured on a cell phone video. This is the broader culture that you have been raised in, not in your homes and not in this school, but the broader culture. This is the broader culture that sadly you inherit, but it does not have to be the culture you live in, and it does not have to be the culture you leave behind. And so I ask you once again, rebel. Refuse to conform to this. It will most definitely change the course of your life. And if by some chance it catches on and others copy you, then who knows? It may even end up changing and saving our country and saving and changing the world. So thank you, and God bless you. Good luck.